More specifically, correct if I'm wrong, but you were mentioning something about
furries and things like
protecting furries.
Yes.
Is this true?
Schools protecting furries.
But this
was happened. Yeah, I won't name the school, but this actually happened, and it's very similar to kind of the gender things as well. If you're a teacher and you don't refer to somebody as their correct pronoun, or now a furry, for example, you could be fired, or you can be in trouble, suspended, whatever it might be.
For those that aren't familiar with you guys all know what furries are, right?
Yeah, but enlighten me.
Unfortunately.
So they're basically people who have some kind of, that identify with anthropomorphic cartoon animals. So they have what's called a fursona, and we got booted off the internet, but we'll just keep going. They have what's called a fursona, where they have a suit that they wear that is a cartoon animal. Mm-hmm. And some people refer to them as like fetishists. Others say it's just more of an identity thing. But the reason I thought this was interesting when you brought this up before is because I've talked about this, that under the New York City human rights law, it does provide legal protection to furries. Mm-hmm. So people who want to wear a fursuit to work, under the law, should be legally allowed to do it. The law states, at least in New York, that gender identity is self-expression, and that you cannot be discriminated against based on what you wear, what you call yourself, and for for obvious reasons, right? If a transgender person is, wearing, if it's someone born male and then they identify as female and they're wearing a dress and they say their name is Susan, the idea is the business can't discriminate against them based on those characteristics. But then it opens the door for things like furries, and I think the thing about furries is that it's interesting because it's a recognizable identity group of people. That is, they have conventions. There's a lot of them, so you can't act like it's not real, and they're protected under these rules. So, earlier before the show, you were mentioning something about how like a school, mm-hmm. there was like a teacher, I guess, who didn't want to do it or something.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and I won't name the day, but yeah, a teacher was like, I cannot believe that I could get in trouble because I call this person by their name and not by their, furry fursona. I don't know.
So you could
never heard what that is until this particular instant, and this is happening in a lot of different places. This is happening in states all across the country, and particularly more blue states for obvious reasons from a policy perspective. But this is happening a lot, and parents probably don't even know. And then their kids have to deal with this stuff at school. It's just so, it seems so bizarre to me.
I think there may be a light at the end of the tunnel. Homeschool your kids.
Right.
This is going to encourage more and more parents to get out of the public school system. Everything the left has been doing has been pushing this country, in my opinion, closer towards Ancapistan. Where
love it.
Defund the police. Okay, we'll hire private police. We're gonna indoctrinate your kids in your schools. Then we're gonna create our own school pods and pull our kids out. It's forcing families to basically privatize things.
And you have so many moms or parents that were never even political at all, but then they see this stuff infiltrating from a political perspective and they're like, wow, I need to get involved because this has gotten to a point where it's affecting me and my children. And that really kind of wakes people up as well. I hear this all the time on the campaign trail. They're like, I never followed politics until this stuff was happening. And so that is a silver lining too.
Is this furry stuff like little kids that were sat down in front of like Teletubbies or like cartoons with like a broken family?
I think so. I don't know about broken family, but I think if someone identifies with anthropomorphic cartoon animals, I have to imagine that they spent a decent amount of time as a child watching anthropomorphic cartoon animals and then built an identity around that.
Tiny Toons.
Yeah, if you're Looney Tunes, if you're a little kid and you're not interacting with adult human beings, and they're putting you in front of a TV where you're watching, Berenstain Bears and Tiny Toons or Looney Tunes or whatever, then you're seeing cartoon animals talking, and your brain is being wired for that to be adult society.
Interesting.
So you build this identity around cartoon animals that talk and act like people, and then you get people who dress up like that, identify that way.
If I played Age of Empires as a kid, do I get to be like Joan of Arc then?
If you play Age of Empires as a kid, you may end up, running for office to become some kind of political politician.
Kids need to come play more outside or something. This has just gotten.
I think strategy games are incredible for your brain.
Oh, they are.
Kids need
like
jobs.
Chess.
Kids need jobs.
Kids need jobs.
But not the awful kind of jobs from the industrial era, like hanging out with your dad and you know, watching him.
Yeah, like raising chickens. That's what I did.
Yeah, the children should be watching their parents work in some capacity. So that's what I mean by job. It should be like, hey, I'm going to be building this thing. Come watch, and I'll show you what I'm doing.
So kids should apprentice.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what they used to do. The kid would watch their parent do a certain task and learn how to do it.
So play outside, play strategy games, and apprentice.
That's the key to parenting, I think.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
being around,
as a non-parent, that's the way I would parent.
Kids want to be like adults, so they're looking up to adults and they're emulating that behavior. If we put kids around a bunch of kids, they just emulate each other, and then they get their behaviors from an amalgamation of weird YouTube videos and you know, celebrities.
Well, why aren't the parents saying?
Parents are working. Both mom and dad are at work.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
but or they don't realize how powerful like media can warp a brain,
right?
Especially a young brain.
Yeah.
This is so interesting to me because my family got static because we were homeschooled, and everyone's like, well, they need to be socialized. They need to be around other kids their age. And my parents are like, no, they're around adults. You know, adults will show them how to speak and how to act, and they don't really need that influence. And I did wish that I had more friends, but at the same time, I feel like I did mature faster because I was around people who already had this developed sense of self. And to me, it was a net benefit because it's like you need that positive influence of adults in your life, not just other kids.
Yeah. No, I was homeschooled too. And
nice.
I think for high school, I was not good in school at all. And it kind of goes back to, you know, everybody trying to fit somebody into a box. I think all kids really learn differently, and school is just not for me. But then I was homeschooled, and I ended up graduating a few years early and just really thriving because not only are you around kind of adults, but you're also able to kind of understand curriculum or you know, almost read and be outside of this kind of construct and the complexities that come in a classroom, right? That come with a classroom and other kids and things like that. So I'm a huge proponent of school choice, especially and homeschooling. And, you know, every kid should learn their own way. And, yeah, there's a social aspect of that. But
so you went to public school in the beginning?
Yeah, I did. I went to public school.
For how long?
Up until about high school.
And then by choice, did you leave?
No. Yeah. You know what? I never found... I don't know if I was challenged or it was just I wasn't challenged enough, but I just learned differently. And I ended up homeschooling and then going to the community college back home and basically skipping junior and senior year of college and then going straight into university at Miami of Ohio for a 4-year degree. So kind of did a weird route.
If you could do it again, would you have homeschooled the entire time, or do you think it helped that you spent some time in that?
That's a good question. I don't know. I think probably up until elementary school, I think public school is okay, or like being around other kids is fine. But then there gets to a point where, you know, all kids are learning differently, or at that time it was like you're either put into, you know, higher level classes or you're not, or if you were, a lot of it was, I guess in short, I'm glad I did at least by elementary school and a little bit of middle school in the public space, but then ultimately kind of where I needed to get serious and needed to get into college and needed to kind of focus and thrive. I was able to do that by being outside of homeschooled at a high school level.
You used the internet a lot when you were homeschooling?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it makes sense.
That's the key, man.
Yeah.
It's a secret. We are in the era where you can teach yourself.
Yeah, you become an autodidact, right? Is that the correct term?
Autodidact.
Like, I feel like I was such an avid reader as a kid and like always kind of wanted to explore other topics, and I just did not conform to this kind of just this the structure of public school and just what they wanted to teach. It just was not my thing, but
Did they say nasty things about you where your teacher's like, if you don't do this, you're going to end up working at McDonald's?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I was like, it was crazy. I was at, I think, like a junior level reading level, and I was in like 3rd grade or something crazy. Like, and I only say that because in this school and in some public schools, you have teachers that they look at kids and they're like, well, you're not smart enough and you're not that. Well, my test scores proved otherwise. I just wasn't, good at school, I guess.
Yeah.
And that really hurts self-esteem because I knew I was smart, but I just never, but when you have people telling you that you're not fitting a mold, or you don't have teachers that are encouraging you in a positive way, which I had great teachers, but I also had kind of bad ones, like every kid, right? And you can talk about this, I'm sure, from a homeschool perspective, is when you have people at such a young age, like not encouraging you or not wanting to kind of one-on-one or help you from a learning perspective. And that's where the parent comes in. And my parents came in, they're like, you know what, you're not doing great in school. We know that you're smart, but let's find a different avenue for you. That's where the parents have to take that responsibility, right? But it does hurt your self-esteem when you're a kid, and because they're like, well, you're different from your other kids.
I kind of had the opposite reaction when I was in school, and I would do well on tests, but just not care for the homework. I just got more arrogant the more they told me I was wrong. I was like, So I remember I had one instance in math class when I was like in 7th grade or something, and it was like a really stupid problem, like 30 minus 50. And I was like dozing off, not paying attention. So my teacher's like, who can answer this question? And then she calls on me thinking she got me. And I look at it and I'm like -20. And then I go back to like doodling stick figures. And then she demanded of me, like, what's the formula? And I was like, formula for what? Like, how did you come to the answer that, 30 minus 50 is -20? And I was like, 3 minus 5? What do you mean? Like, it's just arithmetic. It like did in my head.
Yeah.
And then I got in trouble. I got detention because of it. Wow. And so I was like, this just proves these people are morons because I can do it instantly and they can't.
The biggest frustration of mine, I remember I was chewing gum in school. I think I was in middle school or something. I was chewing gum and I forgot to spit it out before getting into class. And I did it twice, I guess, in the same week. Oh my teacher deducted from my grade because I was chewing gum. And at that point, I was like, this is unacceptable. You are a teacher. You are here to teach me this subject. You are not here to discipline me over gum. This is communism. And I freaked out. I swear. I was like, this is, at that point, I was probably in middle school. And I was like, at this point, this is, I'm like, I'm being punished from a grade perspective. And because I was chewing gum.
How hilarious is that? How hilarious would it be to see 13-year-old Catalina screaming at the teacher, this is communism! Telling me not to chew gum is communism.
I love it.
No, but it shows that deducting your points wasn't about your skill or abilities.
Right.
It was about you being a perfect little drone and doing as you're told.
Exactly. And then, everybody that did what they were told got perfect grades.
Yeah,
that's communism.
They'll pass you through school. I had a class in college that I never attended. I think I attended the first day and then just stopped going. I missed the midterm test, and they were like, it's an automatic failure. I was like, hey, I went in, I talked to the guy, I charmed him, and I was like, can I somehow do anything to pass? And he was like, if you can get an A on the final, I'll give you a D and pass you. So I studied, I got an A on the final, and they passed me. Totally against, they just liked me. It's I don't want to swear, but that whole system is rigged and jacked, in my opinion. It's so easy to get through it if they like you, and it's like you said, they'll just, if you're arrogant, they just want to destroy you because they're egomaniacs.
And then think about the political stuff. Sorry to interrupt you, but think about politics. I was very outspoken as a kid or as a college student at my school, and I had professors that I would get bad grades because on a test, if I didn't agree with them. And I'll say that now, and I'm proud of it because I look at some kids now and they're on campus and they're like, well, I really want to write the right thing so that my professor doesn't, fail me because I'm a conservative. That is a huge problem. That is a very bad problem.
Sounds like these conservatives are spineless.
Or just kids in
Dude,
general.
I'd rather have a D.
No, I'd rather
than
fail.
ever. Yeah, I'd rather fail.
The problem is they're spending all this money to go there, and if they disagree with their professor and fail, then they've wasted their money, basically. So they have to agree with something they don't agree with. And it's warping these kids into crazy, probably is what's happening.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm so agitated today because of this Chauvin thing.
School cuts off the tall grass.
Mm-hmm.
That's
if you are young and talented, they do everything to hold you back and try and stuff you in a box.
Yeah,
right.
It moves at a specific pace. If you're not fast enough, you get left behind. If you're too fast, you get pulled back.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, then you're told that you're different. And then we think about, I love, for example, Ayn Rand and The Fountainhead and a lot of her books. And you think about all these entrepreneurs and people who weren't good in school and they, do great things in the world, and why aren't those people celebrated? But instead we need to protect the structure of the public school system and protect everybody kind of is the same. I think that's to the detriment of individuality in a lot of ways.
Yeah. It's communism.
Public education is an incredible boon. Before we had it was hard to get an education, but now we don't need this weird regiment. We have the internet and access to the information so we can still provide the boon.
I'll be honest, man. Kids should be learning stuff way before 5 years old.
Oh yeah.
And so the idea that an American kid is going to sit around watching nothing but cartoons until 5 and then go to school to learn the stuff is
how
insane.
horrible for a smart kid.
Yeah. Well, and I to make it also not to bring up politics, but to bring up politics, there was a school in Illinois and they had the worst percentage of their kids were not reading and writing. I mean, they had the worst test scores, but that the biggest priority for them was renaming the school. They didn't want it to be called Thomas Jefferson anymore. They wanted it to be called, because of the race relations and tearing down statues and all that. That's what you're focused on when your kids are at an 11% reading at literacy rate against the state.
When did this happen?
This was recently.
Did
this
they
was a
change
couple
it to
months
George
ago.
Floyd
I don't
middle
know.
School?
They wanted it Barack Obama middle school.
That's right.
But then people started
they pushed back on
that because he didn't do enough for for DACA and immigration. Again, your school is failing. It was in a predominantly minority district, so people say, well, we're against. Why aren't you? Well, if you want to help minorities, then help. Increase your literacy rates, increase people being able to thrive and get out of the system, whatever it might be.
Hold on. No. I'm sorry, Catalina. That is racist. The reason they can't thrive is not because they don't know how to read. It's because of white supremacy.
Right.
It's
what they think.
It's just so much easier. Should I teach the kid to read or just point at Ian and be like, Ian, the
problem with that and why some people actually might think it is because in the early 1800s when the slavery system was there were white people that had black slaves and they were keeping them illiterate on purpose because they wanted to keep them disempowered and unable to migrate, basically.
They're using all this stuff as a scapegoat.
Because it wasn't that they were white and black. It didn't matter what their races were. They just happened to be those people at that time.
Access to information.
Slavery is all over the planet.
Indeed.
Yeah. Access to information and poverty, these are major issues that create injustice.
Right.
Access to information.
The lack of it. I mean, people who can't access the internet or who are not able to learn the truth about what's going on, who have bad teachers or who are forced to go to these institutionalized learning facilities and they can't learn. People who have access to knowledge and people who are, poverty is connected to that. If you're poor, the likelihood that you're reading the classics and powerful books and philosophy is lower.
According to Democrats, though, you can't even get a license if you're a minority, let alone access the internet. So
that's the opportunity thing. They think the opportunity doesn't exist.
Right.
When quite literally it's an outcome issue, but the opportunity does exist. If people aren't doing it, there's personal choice involved.
You're making me think about censorship and this whole censorship thing is although the CEOs may think they're doing something good by keeping dangerous information away from you, they might actually be punishing us because sometimes you need to see all sides of a situation. Mein Kampf is a book. People read it and become more intelligent and intellectual, understanding the way a psychopath may think. Not necessarily emulating it,
right?
But you must see the demon to circumvent the demon. And I'm scared that if we censor too much information, that we'll end up becoming whitewashed and basically fall prey to this stuff when it does arise.
Well, it's like book burning. The books being taken off of the internet or whatever it might be. It's the same thing. You're who ultimately decides what is wrong and what is to be
always
read.
The question is who decides what gets to stay and what gets censored.
Right.
And the point that we made on the show several times during the lockdown, people couldn't go to bars, people couldn't talk to each other, but you could go online. The only problem is your opinions were filtered through Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, so certain ideas weren't allowed to propagate.
Right.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. And if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.